advocacy on behalf of business. Dawn is a graduate of Leadership Sunnyvale and serves as co-chair of the Silicon Valley Chamber Coalition, a regional advocacy organization comprised of the 18 chambers in Santa Clara County. Okay, the next person I'm introduced is Christine Velasquez. Is that correct? Did I mess that up, Christine?
Velasquez. Thanks.
Velasquez. And I looked that up and I tried like 16 times. She is the brand new City of Sunnyvale Economic Development Manager. She possesses over 20 years of public and private sector experience, focusing on retail attraction and retention, commercial real estate development, project management, and stakeholder engagement. She currently serves as the City of Sunnyvale's Economic Development Manager. She previously served as the Development Engagement Manager for Lend Lease, that's Google's development partner for the Downtown West Master Plan Development. Her prior roles include serving as the San Jose Redevelopment Agency and Portland's Economic and Redevelopment Agency. Christine holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from our own San Jose State University. She has also served as a board member with Commercial Real Estate Women, Silicon Valley, and held various leadership roles with Innovating Commerce for Sustainable Communities, formerly the International Council of Shopping Centers and Urban Land Institute. And last but not least is Connie Verceles, and she is now a deputy city manager, which is fantastic. We should all applaud that. Connie serves as a deputy city manager at the City of Sunnyvale. She has worked for the city for over 2 decades. She oversees economic development projects. Key accomplishments include helping complete the downtown specific plan, assisting with significant development agreements like City Line and Intuitive, I don't know why I'm not appearing there, but that's okay. Intuitive Surgical, leading development of responsible construction ordinance to protect victims of wage theft, which we were involved in, and providing funds to local businesses, nonprofits during the pandemic through the Sunnyvale Cares grant program. Locally, Connie served as a board member for the nonprofit Sunnyvale Community Services. Shout out to them. She is also a member of several professional and business organizations, including the International City Management Association, CREW, Silicon Valley, Moffett Park Business Group, the Sunnyvale Chamber of Commerce, NAIOPSV, and the Silicon Valley Economic Development Alliance. Verceles holds a Bachelor in Science in Business Administration from California Polytechnic State University in San Luis Obispo. So I'm back again. Okay, so that's, and I don't know who's going to go first. So you need to tell who's going to go first. And then someone on the Livable Sunnyvale side will load your slides.
Gail, I thought we had me going first.
Okay, Dawn is going first.
Well, and the reason for that too is that my remarks are a little less retail specific, because when Gail and I originally spoke about, spoke about this opportunity, I was providing a more general overview of the chamber. So I think we'll start with me, and then we can just get more and more specific and granular on what's happening in the world of retail.
Yeah, don't worry, we'll get you granular. Don't worry.
All right, good. Well, I mean, I can get started while we are loading the slides.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about me. Not that interesting.
Oh wait, let me interrupt 1 second.
Okay.
If you're on the internet on Zoom, please put your questions in the chat. That's it. Thank you so much.
No, that was good. That was good. All right, Gail. Thank you. So my husband and I, we live here in Heritage District, about 4 blocks away from the downtown. And it's just us and the 3 dogs now, as we've just become empty nesters. The kiddos have moved out of the area. And so about me personally, I've spent the last 25 years or so living and working on the East Coast, working for Fortune 50 companies. So I have a corporate background in client acquisition and national account management. So I've managed complex relationships between a myriad of internal and external stakeholders who often have different goals and priorities. So I think that's a good fit for working in the chamber world. Outside of work, I have been a community builder, fundraiser, board member, and chamber champion, even when it wasn't directly relevant to my business goals. So I've been in California for about 10 years now, so I'm a relative newbie. But since I've been here, I've devoted my time to modernizing and uplifting chambers. That's why the Palo Alto, and then the Mountain View, and now Sunnyvale, but I've made some really great contacts along the way. And all the faces went away. Are you guys still there? Okay, I'm gonna assume
Yeah,
you are.
we're trying to
Here,
share
I
your
think,
slides.
it's because Chuck was started screen sharing, that's why.
Yeah, are you ready
Oh,
for the
okay.
slides, Don?
Sure, you can put up the slides.
Okay, that's what we're trying to do.
We need the
Okay.
Jeopardy music. Do, 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 do.
So, yeah, so anyway, I was really surprised when I moved here because on the East Coast, chambers are a powerhouse, right?
Mhm.
They really are instrumental in helping to get things done. So I was shocked when I moved here because chambers here really don't have that much gravitas. They're not nearly as highly regarded and as instrumental in solutions as they are in other areas. So, I've got to do something about that. That matters to me a great deal because I think that there really isn't another agency that's better poised to facilitate what I consider radical collaboration. And that's what wicked problems demand. Radical collaboration. There's not a singular solution or a superstar nonprofit or think tank that can fix things. It really does take all of us in our day-to-day actions working together, leaving our ego and politics at the door with a focus on radical collaboration. So that's really why I'm here today. So I'm excited to be with you. I'm excited to play this role in my hometown chamber. And, I appreciate the opportunity to chat with all of you. You can see from the slide what our mission is to help keep our businesses and community thrive by fostering opportunities and engagement through networking, education, advocacy, and collaboration. I think that we can all agree that we're in a period of recalibration. All of us, is it personally, professionally. And so the chamber, like every other organization, has had to shift a bit over the past 3 years. I probably need about 2 hours to talk through all the things that we're working on, but I'll spare you. In a nutshell, we've invested in ourselves, in our technologies. We've reimagined our efforts to serve the community, and we've very intentionally curated an engaged audience, which has created a relevance that had been missing for some time. That's okay, right? Cycles. There are cycles in every business. So, I'm going to say gone are the days when a monthly networking event was the benefit of chamber membership. Not that there's anything wrong with that. We're seeing a big resurgence in networking. We're still having them, but now we tend to do more multi-chamber things that bring folks together, that really expand their network, that allows them to share their mission with people who might never have heard it, to engage with their business and civic leaders from not just their city, but multiple cities. It's just a different level of access, and we're getting a great response to it. I'm excited about that. For our members, though, we have built a platform. So that platform allows them to market their work, their events, their news, manage their brand, and control their narrative. And it's about $1.50 a day. Extremely reasonable. Best marketing deal out there. But even for those without the means to support membership, we're often able to determine a scholarship for them, which is, I love that. As an example, Key Point Credit Union. They recently sponsored memberships for 3 nonprofits in the belief that the chamber membership would help that to advance the mission of those nonprofits and increase the marketing and community outreach goals. So we now have 3 new members: Home First, Helping Hands of Silicon Valley, and the Nearly New Shop, all like amazing nonprofits with a tremendous story that they can now use chamber tools to share out. Storytelling is a really big part of bringing people together and helping all of us understand what's happening in the community. And, you know, along with the community events that we host, the ability to shape their brand using chamber tools is just a tremendous advantage. It really is. Everything doesn't get done on social media, and everybody can't necessarily afford the time or cost to fully leverage social media as your marketing tool. It should be one of your tools, but so should the chamber. For our community, we've designed a new website so that it's a centralized resource and available to anyone interested in knowing more about Sunnyvale. So there are blogs and stories about our businesses. There are news articles. There's an About Sunnyvale section. I do think there's a legislative listing there that I need to update, so don't look at that tonight. A community calendar. Did you guys know that any one of you can add an event that your organization is hosting, your church is hosting, your school is hosting to the chamber calendar at zero cost? You just go to the website, right in the middle of the page, there's a click button to upload your event. It may not seem like a big deal, but advertising an event can get pretty expensive. When you're printing off those posters and stapling them to the telephone poles or whatever you do, I think this is just a better way to get the word out. I do need to switch the slide because I kind of forgot about that. Sorry. Next slide, please. Oh, there we are, our board of directors. I don't think I spoke about them at all. So let me just chat to that slide, our board of directors. The chamber is a 501(c)(c). So we are a not-for-profit, and we are guided by our board of directors. And I wanted you to see that our volunteer board members hail from a variety of industries. And so they are so great at providing the context, experience, perspective, and the best practices from the agencies that they lead and organizations they volunteer with. So I'm really proud of our board, and we're looking to continue to build that board. So if you know of any possible board members, do keep the chamber in mind. Next slide, please. Okay. We do spend a lot of time and energy on making sure that we're aggregating and amplifying information, because I feel sometimes like information resources, they exist, but it's a bit like looking out into the Star Wars night sky. There's so much coming at you. It's really hard to organize and prioritize what it is that you need as a business owner. So we've tried to just extrapolate as much information from different agencies as we can, share that information out so that our business owners have that one-stop information point. And so we also republish information that economic development sends out to the community. We try to just amplify the voice of any other agency and simplify the information source. We spend a lot of time featuring celebrations and successes because it's an important part of building community. Of course, we connect and convene and host events. Those are wonderful things, and I think many of you know about them. Next slide, please. Okay, very briefly, most of you know that the chamber hosts a multitude of signature events, the Murphy Awards, the Art and Wine Festival. The last 2 years, we have been helpful, one of the leads in the Pride event, and a co-host in the Pet Parade, which is about as cute as it can possibly get. If you haven't attended before, it's the Saturday closest to Halloween. But our signature events are an extension of our effort to celebrate and connect and convene, engage and champion our community. So they are tools that we really want all of our community members and our agencies to take advantage of, to attend, to use it to market your business and tell your story, and most importantly, engage one-on-one with the community. Do save June 3rd and 4th on your calendars. And also be aware that we've provided an 80% discount off of our exhibitor fees for our small locals and our small nonprofits. And so our definition is 10 employees or less. So if a small business can find some way to staff their booth for the weekend, because that's definitely a challenge, for just $250, we will happily deliver 65,000 guests directly to your booth. It's a good deal. And I would love if you can share that out. We'd like to get as many community organizations participating in this year's festival as possible. We have a designated area for it, the City Line Center. Anyway, membership is another thing we're really excited about. We're now at 302 member businesses. We've added many businesses, over 150 member businesses over the last 2 years. We've added a membership level for home-based business because they are just as important to us as our brick and mortar. And from an advocacy standpoint, we've formed a business and policy committee, and they are committed to building relationships with our legislators and recommending to our board of directors issues that we should advocate on because they have a universal impact to our business community. So that's our definition of when we get involved. We don't endorse candidates because we want to happily work with whomever is in the position. I've listed on there some of our 2023 initiatives, and I really want to say thank you to the city of Sunnyvale and specifically to Connie, because we've had such a great opportunity over the last 3 years to support and protect and educate our small businesses. Everybody rolled up their sleeves and we worked together to deliver so many resources and quite a few very curated, customized virtual training programs for our small businesses. It was a giant leap for many of these businesses to need to have a QR code for their menu, to be able to regularly update their hours so that you knew when you could go and get food. There were so many things that were new, and the shift was so sudden that it made a huge difference that we were able to share ever-changing COVID resources, access to capital, marketing support, free legal support. We did a lot of feedback surveys to get a sense of where people were. We even did free headshots. So a little of everything to help move business along. And not every endeavor was a success. We hosted a shop local platform, which was brilliant, but it was a help to our home-based small businesses who needed to find creative ways to sell their art or their inventory without any direct human contact. All small things, but all those small things do add up. I'm going to say that our superpower is the trusted relationship that we have built with our small local businesses, whether they're a member or not. We keep in constant contact, literally, with every business owner and operator, and they have rewarded us with a 48% open rate. So that translates to 121,000 opens over the last 12 months. And that's amazing because that allows us to have an impact. That allows us to share the messages of the groups in Sunnyvale and what they're working on, and to be able to help advance that collaboration that we were talking about. I'm going to end on a completely different note and just share with you our village center recommendations, because I know that you'll be talking about that later in the evening. And so I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit, and maybe it won't make tremendous sense yet, but later when you hear the presentation, it might. So we're asking that council support increased density and height to accommodate more housing within the village centers. We are also asking to preserve grocery stores to avoid food deserts where possible. The whole food grocery store thing is pretty complicated. We would like to be a part of identifying key businesses that can or should be preserved. We would like to request a definition or expanded definition and uses for ground floor retail, in the hope that there are more types of businesses that can leverage all the first floor retail that will be coming online. Looking far ahead, it would be great to begin to ask council to incentivize support for home ownership rather than 100% rental units. And the last,
Dawn?
yeah.
I'm going to have you wrap up because we need time for the nice 2 CVs.
Yeah, I'm one more point and then I'm done. I won't say another peep.
Okay.
And the last thing is that we want to suggest using community benefit funds for a business interruption fund to help subsidize, relocate, and support any displaced small businesses. So those are the recommendations and kind of the asks that we have as it pertains to the Village Center, which you'll be discussing later. And sorry for going on so long, but thank you for listening. I hope
Okay.
you're still awake.
Thank you so much. And I didn't realize this, but we have 2 CVs in the city. And Connie, you probably knew that when you hired her, right? But
That's
Okay,
why
so-
I hired her, Gail. It made
Oh,
my
that-
job easier.
well, it makes the towels easier, right? So when you have the restroom, it's easier for towels. Okay, so I think, Chuck, do you have the slides? I emailed them to you.
I'm going to actually ask if Christine and Connie can share their own slides. It seems to work a little bit better if that's okay.
Sure. I'm
Okay,
happy
that's
to.
fine.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Don. I'm sorry I had to interrupt you.
Okay, let's see. Let's share my screen. Okay, is that, does everyone see our presentation or a first slide there?
Yep, we're good.
Great. So Connie and I will be co-presenting our piece here. First off, we certainly want to again extend our appreciation for this opportunity to connect and present to the group. And we were asked to talk about retail, and we're happy to do that and provide some updates for you. So I'm going to go ahead and start. First off, as you all heard, I am the new Economic Development Manager. This is my 3rd full week, and I'm excited to be part of the team. You, of course, are familiar with Connie. She's been with the city for over 20 years and has been one of your main liaisons and contacts. And I'm happy to serve in that capacity as well. But it goes beyond just our economic development team. It's really a citywide effort. So from our community development department to our public service department, throughout the city, we are all putting focus on economic development and really advancing the economic development efforts in the city to the benefit of the community. Some of the major services that we focus on and provide, and I'm going to put just a little retail bend on it, business development assistance. So businesses from the small entrepreneurs to regional and national tenants. We can provide service in finding sites, from site selection through helping shepherd them through the permitting process, all the way through grand opening. We are here as a resource to them. Marketing Sunnyvale is a great place to do business. Of course, Sunnyvale was #1 as the happiest city in the nation, and it goes beyond just, just feeling happy. It's based on a number of key factors that are real, and we're happy to share that with everybody. We also, I'm just going back to my slide here. We also look at business data analysis, from online data that we have to really being proactive and soliciting feedback and looking at and coordinating various studies to help provide a roadmap, if you will, as we carry out our economic development goals. Strategic partners with businesses and business associations, building strong rapport and new relationships with these organizations such as Livable Sunnyvale, of course, and lead key economic development initiatives, one of which that I will touch on a little later, which is the Economic Strategic Plan. Now, Connie and I just came back from a retail conference that is an annual conference, ICSC Retail Conference, which was in Monterey. And so we certainly put Sunnyvale's best foot forward. We had the opportunity to meet with brokers and property representatives who are promoting and leasing spaces in Sunnyvale. We also had the opportunity to connect with tenants who are expanding in the region. And we were able to apply all these services here listed, bulleted out here in full force as we walked the halls, met with people, and also learned about retail trends. One example of business data analysis is retail gaps. And so that's something that we closely track. Here's a list of some of the businesses and the types of retail that serve as an opportunity for Sunnyvale and for the economic development team to pursue. We do lose, what we refer to as our sales tax, and these businesses, of course, are sales tax generators to other cities. And so, in order to continue to provide high levels of service and quality service to the residents and community of Sunnyvale, we want to continue to stay competitive and close those gaps, or really try to see what other retailers we should be pursuing so that we can create successful co-tenancies, and that you can shop here, shop local, shop Sunnyvale. So you can read them here: soft goods, family apparel, women's and men's clothing, department stores, home furnishings. We have a number of housing units coming online, fine dining, and specialty stores to complement the retailers that are here already. And next, I'm going to turn it over to Connie.
Thank you, Christine. We were asked to talk about retail trends and sort of where we are in the retail in Sunnyvale. And so we one of the things that we do, Christine mentioned, from economic development, is that we look at retail trends and we work with existing and potential businesses to attract them to Sunnyvale. But in order to be able to do that, Christine and I also need to work with our colleagues in land use and in community development, because we need to have a location for them to go. And then, we use all the data analysis that we know with our data gaps. What are we looking for? Where should they go? And looking at the city and ensuring that our long range planning meets those goals and provides a space for those businesses that are already in Sunnyvale to continue to expand and grow, as well as attract new ones based on what we need. So there's three major areas that we're currently concentrating on with a retail focus. It's mixed use, but El Camino Real, the city just recently adopted about 6 months ago a El Camino Real specific plan update. And there's a focus on that, on adding housing on El Camino, because there are some spaces that are very underutilized. But from our perspective and for economic development, where we were involved in that, is that El Camino Real is the major commercial corridor for the city of Sunnyvale. That's where you have the majority of your grocery stores, the majority of your big box retailers. We mentioned that we have a gap in that, but that's where they're located. Your auto dealers, your auto services, that's where there's a major transportation corridor. And that's very important for Sunnyvale as we continue to look to retain the businesses that we currently have, as well as attract new ones to the area. So we are working very closely with brokers and property owners on El Camino Real to ensure that whatever long-term ranging plans and zoning decisions we make, the city is cognizant of those uses to ensure that they can continue to thrive in the area. Just a little fun fact, we're focusing on retail, and retail is really important to Sunnyvale because of the retail tax that those businesses generate for the city. And just as a little data point, the businesses along El Camino Real generate anywhere between 25% and 30% of our total sales tax dollars to the city. So it's a big chunk of change and important for us. And the other area that we're focusing on right now is our Moffett Park specific plan. And this is an area that's north of 237 all the way to the bay, and close to the Santa Clara border, and then over the former Onasuka site and the airport. So what we're looking to do there is that traditionally that has been a location for high-tech companies. If you drive around Moffett Park, that's the who's who of Silicon Valley. You will run into people from Google, from Facebook, from Amazon, from Juniper Networks. And so those are fantastic companies, But it's also, when you look at it, it is very horizontal development. So there's opportunities to do that. So the city embarked on a update of that area of the plan with our major stakeholders, our major property owners in the area, to really reinvigorate and redevelop that whole, what we call the Moffett Park specific plan. And our high level look at it is that we are looking at adding potentially up to 20,000 housing units in the area, as well as 10 million net new square feet of office, and also up to 500,000 square feet of retail. And the idea of the retail is so important when we're looking at this area, because it's like a blank canvas. So we need to make sure, if we're going to be allowing residential and all this new office, we also need to be able to provide services to those people that are going to be moving into that area. So retail is super important for that. So Christine and I will be actively working with brokers as this plan moves forward to ensure that the broker community and the retailers are aware that this is a fresh opportunity. And as Christine mentioned, we were at a conference. We literally came back in a few hours ago, back to Sunnyvale to present to you guys. But we did mention this to a lot of our brokers, and there was a lot of interest, like, oh, wow, this is fantastic. We hadn't heard about this. So it's good to put it on the radar screen. So super excited about that. And then also our downtown area, which I'm hoping everybody on the call, whether virtually or in person at Sunnyvale Community Services, understands, what a transformation that is currently going through. That is the heart of the city, right? I like to say that that's sort of the living room of the community. That's where we want to keep it nice. And the city spends a lot of resources and energy and time to work with our businesses down there to ensure that they're successful. And that's the area where we have, the AMC, they're doing well. Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, not Trader Joe's, Target. That's another tea business. I apologize for that. But overall, what's already on the ground, the housing and the retail, but what's under construction that if you go down there, you see the steel for it is you're going to have 2 12-story apartment buildings, and that's going to have about 480 apartments. And then in addition to that, you're going to have 2 7-story office buildings. And that office space will allow for about 500,000 square feet of office space and bring new tenants to the downtown, as well as about, let me go my notes, how much do we have in retail? There's going to be a little bit of retail. I think it's not that much, but it's about 40 or 50,000 square feet of retail between the two buildings. And then, I know there's a lot of focus on the downtown area, what we call City Line, again, that I focused on that. But really, we also have such a phenomenal retail lineup on historic Murphy Avenue, on Washington, on McKinley. So when we talk about the downtown, I just want to be cognizant that we don't just talk about the City Line project, because the downtown area for us is everything from Iowa or even Olive all the way to Evelyn, Matilda, to Sunnyvale, to Carroll. And so I really encourage, if you haven't been downtown, please come. We know that there's a little bit of hiccups as construction continues to occur, but we really are working very closely with the contractor and the developer to ensure that we move people in and out as quickly as possible. So please shop our downtown and continue to support our retailers. Christine, back to you.
Great, thanks. Oops. Just want to make sure my mic is on. Great, thanks, Connie. So one of the initiatives that we are placing focus on is coordinating an economic development strategic plan. And here listed are the top 5 priorities that council has asked to put focus on, starting with supporting small and medium-sized businesses. During the height of the pandemic, there were a number of initiatives that the city put forward, and one of them is the Sunnyvale Cares program, which was a grant funding program in which we collaborated with a number of corporations and businesses to provide financial assistance and really help businesses, small and medium businesses, through the hardship, financial hardship during especially the height of the pandemic, as well as shopping locally, Shop Sunnyvale, and really encouraging people to support local small businesses, as well as continue to help promote them. Enhance retail vibrancy, really just getting the word out about Sunnyvale, enhancing our economic development website, having a stronger social media presence, and the like. Number 3, strengthening program capacity and support development review process. I was a result of one of these, hiring an economic development manager. Again, happy to be here and really appreciate the warm welcome. Number 4 is pursue technology and transportation partnerships, which is pretty straightforward. And number 5, support housing affordability initiatives. And next steps on the economic development strategic plan, we will be holding community or stakeholder engagement opportunities. So you too can provide your feedback. We are really going to ensure that this is an inclusive process, and we'll really appreciate everyone's input and feedback on the plan and carrying it out. We'll also look to confirm and rank priorities based on the feedback that we received by the community and key stakeholder groups. And we will then coordinate a revised draft plan based on the feedback. And later this year, we expect to submit a plan for adoption and approval by council. And back to Connie.
Thanks, Christine, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. This is our last slide, so I just wanted to wrap up with, the work that we are doing on Murphy Avenue, and this is something that it was a direct result of COVID. Christine mentioned that as we look at retail and we look at how retail operations will continue to evolve, change, our business operators will continue to adapt as to what's the new normal post-COVID. And we're working with our businesses on Murphy Avenue, and really the community came out really strong in support of banning cars on Murphy Avenue and opening up the street to pedestrians. And so council took the first action last month, the first step in regards to making that project come to fruition and being complete. So council adopted a resolution of intention, declaring its intention to, again, ban cars on the street and open up the street to a pedestrian. We're calling it a pedestrian mall. There's a legal process that we have to go through. So, we're using the Pedestrian Mall Act of 1960 to convert the right now street that allows vehicles into a pedestrian mall. And I will be going back to council on May 16th with an actual, for council to take the final action on converting that street to the pedestrian mall and fully allocating the funds that we need to make some accessibility improvements, with the goal and the intent to allow those restaurants on Murphy Avenue that are already currently using the street for outdoor dining to continue that program indefinitely. And the city will continue working with the Sunnyvale Downtown Association on how to best, program that street and how to move forward with permitting and any, additional maintenance cost or improvements that may need to be made. And we'll work very closely with the businesses and the Downtown Association when, if council gives the final say to move forward on May 16th, we will ensure that as we are doing the construction, we work very closely with our businesses as well as our community to, provide updates as to where we are and what's the status as we're doing the improvements. And then hopefully invite Livable Sunnyvale to the ribbon, I guess not ribbon cutting, I guess maybe ribbon closing again when that street is a full pedestrian mall. That's all we had. And I know, Christine and I, and I'm sure Dawn is still here, that we are here and available to answer any questions. As Dawn mentioned, we work very closely together. So I'm sure all three of us would be pleased and happy to dive into whatever discussion you guys may want to have.
Great. So I think we have a few minutes for questions. Who wants to handle the questions from inside the room? Let's do those first. And then I've got a few questions for you, but Can someone there see if there's any questions from the group?
I'm s-
Gail, there is a question in the chat. I don't know if you want to go into that too, but
Yeah, I was going to do the people live first.
Yep, we have a question.
Julia,
Sure.
oh, good.
Hello, I'm Arjun Arora. I'm a current Sunnyvale resident. And I just had a question about the development of the pedestrian mall. So from my understanding in like walking down historic Murphy Avenue, it already is closed down to vehicles. So I'm curious, like what else is necessarily going to be developed there? I mean, obviously I support any further like closing down of streets to cars. So I'm just curious what's actually going to happen.
yeah, so right now
Great
it's
question.
closed. It was closed under the emergency impact that we had because of COVID. So it's only a temporary closure or banning of cars. Council has taken the action to make it permanent. So right now, even though it has been, cars haven't been allowed for the last 3 years almost. We closed it in June of 2020. The pedestrian mall will be permanently banning cars, and the city will make some permanent improvements to ensure that the street is accessible to all of our visitors, especially the ones with mobility issues.
Great, thank you so much.
I forgot to do this. I really appreciate the three of you and the time you've spent and your wonderful acumen in this area. Julia, are there any more questions in the room?
Well, yeah, I can ask a question. This is Mike.
Great,
Uh,
perfect.
So it seems like all the existing, most of the existing retail in Sunnyvale is in kind of old buildings, which is great, has a lot of character, but with lower rents. And when we redevelop and tear those down, then they're going to want 2 or 3 times the rent or whatever, and it just doesn't make sense for people. Even the people on when I talk to business owners on Murphy, their rent keeps going up, and a number of them are going out of business. So how do we deal with that? And of course, what has happened over the years, the cost of land and the cost of the real estate has gone up much faster than the cost of things you just buy at the store. So it no longer makes economic sense. And Perry Park, for example, we were supposed to have a lot of retail there and have basically added no retail over many years, even though we wanted it. And we have the same kind of projections for Moffett Park, but of course the concern is that we're going to end up with no retail there, and we're all going to have to be going to Mountain View or whatever to get a carton of milk or a shirt. So what can be done about this to make it economically feasible? Do we have to subsidize retail in order to have that work?
Thanks, Mike. That's a really good question, and you're absolutely right. And that's something that in economic development, it's always a topic of discussion. And the way that in Sunnyvale we've been supporting that is, ensuring that our businesses are informed, they're aware of what, any other services are available, especially during COVID. We ensured that our businesses were aware of, certain protection, eviction moratoriums, grant programs, either through the city or through the county. And then in areas in Moffett Park, that is a discussion that we were looking at is, how do we maintain the diversity? One of the things that really the city, the biggest hammer or tool, I should say, excuse me, that was my bias speaking. The biggest tool that we have is zoning, because the land, you're absolutely right. Real estate prices have gone up, but the value is when the city upzones. That's what we call it. Is if you're allowed to build a very tiny building, and then you want to sell it, there's a process you have to go through. But if the city goes and upzones a lot of these areas, and now your little tiny building, you could build the building 5 times as big, you created that value because now it's more valuable to a developer to buy it and to rebuild it. So really that is the tool that we have on zoning. And in Moffett Park, what we have been proposing of doing is keeping the zoning very low. And anything above that, you'd have to look at what type of community benefits you'd have to provide for the offices. And that's intentional because we want to be able to maintain the diversity. And then Gail, I know we're running out of time, but the other thing I wanted to point out is that sometimes, and you've seen staff recommend to council for a policy discussion, especially for businesses along Evelyn that are primarily your service oriented auto repair. There's been some request from developers to convert the zoning from, industrial to residential, and staff has actually pushed back and recommended the council not approve that initiation because to protect the zoning of those buildings. And again, that's the tool that we have. It's all about the zoning and what the city would allow.
Okay, Dawn, do you want to add to that?
No, I think that was great and comprehensive.
Because you had some really good ideas about the village center, Mike, and I think that was interesting. I have one more question for you guys, okay? And that is, I want Connie or Christine to tell us how the heck you nabbed REI.
I'll have to defer to Connie. Help make that deal happen.
So, Gail, we'll give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. As Christine and I spent 2 days in Monterey talking to retailers, it's always a lot of fun when we announce so-and-so is open, but there's been so much work behind the scenes that happens. And actually REI was a discussion at the event that we just went to 4 years ago, when we knew that their lease was going to come up in Mountain View. We talked to the broker. It's a relationship building, is touring them where we say, okay, that lease is going to come up. Look, we have available space. Come on down. Understanding our inventory, understanding that, Toys R Us and Babies R Us, unfortunately, they had some issues, so we're going to go out. So the building just matched, as we get that intel and that information, making the connections, and having the relationship with either the retailers themselves or the brokers. And Christine, she's going to be a fantastic asset for Sunnyvale because she has those connections as well. And so that's something that is really valuable. So again, it starts as a seed years and years ago, before, and then we make the announcement and it's like magic. Look, it happens, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes.
So I would like to, now that you've done all your presentations, I would like you to come back at some point in the future and we can just ask you questions. Okay. So that's what I'd like to do. And I want to stay on time here. And so Dawn, do you want to make a
Julia has a
closing
question.
comment?
Julia
Oh,
has a
good.
question.
Julia, go for it.
Actually, this is Agnes and I have a question. Do you have a sense, any of you, how many small businesses have left Sunnyvale because their leases expired and their rent went up so high they couldn't afford to stay in Sunnyvale?
We don't have the actual number, there's anecdotal information. And sometimes the way we track our closures is our business license system. And sometimes, they close for different reasons, and we don't do an exit interview for lack of a better term, right? But so I'm sure Dawn has heard anecdotal information that we know it is happening, but I don't have a hard number. Dawn, I don't know if you have any additional information.
No, I really don't. I don't think that there's any hard data available yet. And I think too that we're just going to start to see any of that fallout now. I think there has been a very minimal amount up until now. Most businesses have been hanging in there.
And one of the messages that was a good takeaway from the conference is that, there were a number of businesses that actually opened and emerged
Yes.
at the height of the pandemic and even now. So it was a very, very enlightening, very inspiring, and positive. So to Dawn's point, it appears that we didn't really have, a lot of exits. If anything, we were able to maybe gain some.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
really
know
want
if you got noticed that, but Scott has a question in the chat, which I don't think had been addressed. If that's-
Oh, let me see it.
Oh,
So
okay.
question, if I can read it for you guys, is Scott
go ahead,
wanted
you
to
read it.
know how big the retail sales gap is in Sunnyvale versus neighboring cities. Like, what are we missing? Auto dealers, big box, malls, others, that kind of question.
Yeah,
you,
Christine
Scott.
had a good Yeah, Christine had a good slide on that. We are actually not deficient in auto dealers. We actually have fairly healthy auto dealer sales. Where our gaps are, and it really depends on the, the items to how we compare to other cities, but our gaps and where we know for a fact that our residents are going to other cities is furniture. We don't have big furniture stores where people can buy the furniture. Family apparel, that be whether it's women, child, men, there's not a lot of apparel store. And then we also know that our residents are shopping in other cities for what we call specialty stores. Lee's bookstore would be like a specialty store, right? Because you can go in there and buy more than just books. You can buy socks and totes and, gifts and candles. And so those are the kinds of things that people are looking for and are leaving our city to go buy elsewhere.
Like Eddie's Quilting Bee.
Eddie's Quilting Bee, yes.
Thank you, Leah. Okay, so we're going to wrap up, but I will have you guys back. And we'll have more questions
Donna
for
has
you.
a question too, Gail.
Okay,
Donna has her
go
hand
ahead.
raised.
Okay, possibly you answered some of this already, but is Sunnyvale missing an opportunity by not targeting for some large businesses more like REI? I mean, personally, I know for holiday shopping, my nephews and nieces for back to school shopping, we leave Sunnyvale. We go to a place where there are lots of options for shopping. And I don't find that we can do that. I love our small stores, but for maximizing my time, I'm going to some larger stores. And I used to stay here when we had Macy's, or even, I'll date myself, Emporium on the border with, but anyway, I think you kind of answered some of that question already, but okay.
Yeah, and Donna, we know, I mean, that was on the slide too from Christine, that we are missing those department stores. So that is on our list.
Okay, well, again, I'm going to try and wrap up.
I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in, Gail.
Thank you so much. Everyone clap for these guys. They're terrific.
Gail, I'm going to jump in
Gail,
I'm going to jump into this I'm going to try to jump in. This is Angela. And just extend it just a couple minutes here. I have a question about at the study session, City Manager Kent said, and this may be putting you three on the spot, but maybe you don't have to talk for him, but he mentioned there could be several study issues coming up down the pike about retail. If you guys were doing a study issue, what would you like to see? I know I would like to see something about what happens in the vacancies, what's causing them, or what is the vacancy rate? More data on something like that, but maybe you guys could say something that we need to be, or we should be looking at. If you can be that candid, maybe. Sorry.
Yeah, I can jump in, and I'm sure Christine and Don may have a little bit to add. But, as Christine mentioned on our economic development strategy, that is one of the things that we are going to be looking at, right, is looking at data. We're going to go back, because one of the things that we learned is when we had done a lot of outreach to looking at what do our residents want and need, right, and where are they going to get their goods and services that the city's not provided. We did find some gaps, and there's different data points that we could use. But really, what we also learned, Christine and I, at the retail conference today, is that a lot of the operations and retailers post-pandemic are changing the way that they operate. And one thing that really stood up to both Christine and I, and we were talking about it afterwards, is that Dunkin' Donuts, for example, before they had a model, they used to say, oh, we need to be in this location with X number of rooftops around us. We need a drive-through. We need, they had specific. You know what? They opened up in Dunkin' Donuts in Sunnyvale during the pandemic without a drive-through, and they're doing phenomenal. And so what they're learning post-pandemic is that the models that they thought they needed and the diehard requirements, those requirements are maybe they're not needed. They need to be adjusted, because now people are using their apps to shop a little bit more. So maybe you use your app to go order your donuts and your coffee, and it's waiting for you, or they bring it to your car. And what the rep from Dunkin' Donuts says is that sometimes that's even faster than a drive-through. Other businesses, again, are changing their operations because now they're able to manage their inventories a little bit better. So maybe you don't need, the massive, traditional retail where you have the store in the front and a bunch of inventory in the back, right? Because people can order online, you can come and try it on. So where Christine and I are going to be having, you know, a lot of fun, and I say fun because I think it is going to be interesting to go back and really talk to, you know, figure out those data points, talk to our stakeholders, the brokers, the retailers, and then our residents, right? How have our habits changed? Because I'm sure I can ask all of us on this call that during pandemic, some of our shopping habits really got altered or changed.
And to add to that also, then, you know, because of the businesses pivoting and kind of changing up their business model and trying things out because of the pandemic, it can open up more possibilities. So maybe they don't need that drive-through, and maybe there are those opportunities in Sunnyvale that they can consider. It will be fun kind of uncovering all that and seeing where we can, you know, visualize or bring businesses into and fill the, you know, the missing teeth, if you will, in certain areas in Sunnyvale.
Okay, are we done? Not that I'm, because I could keep going, but I think we need to go on, but thank you very much. I love you guys. Back to,
Thank you, Christine. Bravo, third week being on the job. That was great. And also, Connie, you both coming from a conference. We are glad you were here. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Great seeing you guys.
Appreciate it.
Okay,
Thanks for teaching us about retail.
thank
My
you.
pleasure. Have a good evening.
Thanks. Next on our agenda, we have just an update on the Village Center Master Plan. So Chuck and Agnes chair our housing committee or section. So I think Chuck is going to talk a little bit about Village Centers.
All right, so yeah, so you guys can see this. Yeah, the slides are
Yep.
good now. I finally figured out how to do sharing on Zoom. So that's progress. All right, and I can start the video. Oop. I guess we can do it without video. All right, so the Village Center. So Sunnyvale is working on a master plan for 7 village centers that are distributed throughout the city. And in January, they presented kind of 2 workshops that talked a little bit about what their vision is and kind of some of the initial ideas they have for this general plan, for this master plan that they're working on for the village centers. And so I'm going to try to provide a summary of what they did. I know some of you were there, but I will try to provide a summary of some of the slides they presented. All of these slides you see with kind of the little blue borders, those are just kind of basically copies I made of the slides for this presentation. The city has a really good website. I don't know if someone has that handy and can post it in chat. If you do a Google search for Sunnyvale Village Centers, it'll pop it up. And Sunnyvale actually has all of their slides, all the videos of the presentations, and a whole bunch of information on the village centers on their website. It's pretty well done if you want to get more details. So what they presented, so they started just kind of talking about a little bit a very high level, what are these master plans? So they're working on this, as I said, this master plan for 7 different village centers. And they had a map. These are the map of the 7 centers. So the little orange blobs you see there are the different village centers, and they're kind of distributed throughout the city. And they had 2 different oops, let me go back. They had 2 different workshops. The first workshop they targeted at residents who were living near the village centers in the southern parts of the city. So village centers 1, 2, and 3 that are circled here. And then the second workshop was targeted at residents who live near the village centers in the northern parts of the city. So near village centers 4, 5, 6, and 7. And they talked a little bit about why is Sunnyvale creating this master plan? Like what do they need to do? These village centers are already part of the general plan. Why do they need to make changes? Why are they updating this? And the first thing they talked about is right now the general plan for these talks about the village centers, and it requires a public engagement process. So when any developer wants to come in and build something at the village centers, the idea was there would be a public engagement process where the residents, the city, and the village and the developers would all get together and figure out what is the right thing to build at these locations. Unfortunately, the city can't do that anymore. The state actually passed a law called SB 330 that doesn't allow cities to do this public engagement anymore. It was motivated. Sunnyvale generally does a really good job with this, but there are a lot of jurisdictions throughout the city that use these public engagement processes as ways to kind of block development and create roadblocks. You can think of like Cupertino and Valco, how that whole process worked out. There are just kind of so many bad actors throughout the state that the state finally came in and said, you can't do this anymore. And instead that cities have to develop objective standards for what can be developed at one site or another. So kind of a set of rules that say, this is the type of thing you can build here. And then if a developer comes in and they meet all of those requirements and all those rules, the project gets approved and otherwise not. But so one of the things they're working on is trying to come up, what are these objective standards, kind of these formal objective standards for these village centers. Another thing they talked about is just generally the need for more housing in the city. So we all know kind of what housing prices are and how hard it is to afford to live around here. And so they talked about these village centers are great opportunities and great sites where the city can build, or the city can let people build new housing. And especially kind of in the southern parts of the city, the ones down kind of on Fremont Avenue and by Old San Francisco. These are great sites that provide a good opportunity for getting more housing in the southern parts of the city. And then kind of a third reason, this is actually kind of more of a kind of my perspective on things rather than what the city presented is, there have been a set of developments that are already underway at some of the village centers, and they're not really kind of what was originally envisioned. They tend to be kind of rows of townhouses with like maybe a little sprinkling of retail here. They aren't really the complete communities and kind of these big centers with retail, mix of retail and open space and housing that was originally envisioned. And so the city's kind of working on how do they modify the plan so that they can get get developers to build kind of more of what was originally envisioned with these village centers. And so some of the things that they presented at the workshops, this slide actually shows, they talked a little bit about what types of housing could be built at the village centers. The idea is that kind of the village centers, different areas of a village center may have different housing types, kind of out towards the edges, bordering the residential neighborhoods. You may want to have townhouses or single family homes or kind of smaller format developments. And then as you get closer to kind of the main streets and the main roads, you get larger and larger format developments that allow for more housing. And they had actually two specific kind of concrete proposals that they were presenting. One is increasing the allowed density at the village centers to go up to 30 units per acre. This is actually something that Livable Sunnyvale has been advocating for quite some time. So it was great to see they included this as part of the presentation. We had been involved that they had done some earlier workshops on village centers and some earlier presentations. And we had also worked on that through the housing element. But it was great to see kind of allowing more development of more housing at these sites. And they'd also proposed increasing the height limit from 4 stories where it is right now, adding an extra story to be able to accommodate some of the larger format buildings. They also talked a little bit about retail. So they didn't have a whole lot of details on retail, but the kind of vision and the goals that they were presenting seemed quite very much aligned with what we thought. They wanted to require 10 to 25% of the site to be devoted to retail. So it can't just be all housing there. There has to be some amount of retail. And they also want to encourage preservation of existing retail and restaurant uses, which is a great goal. They didn't have a lot of details on how they would do this, but these were some of the things that they were looking for. And actually, one other thing I forgot to mention is if you have questions during the middle of this, feel free to raise your hand or kind of if you're here, kind of shout them out. And if you want to ask questions as we're going along, I'm happy to answer any of those. And then one of the final things that they did at this presentation is they presented just some concepts of what might be built at these village centers. There's been a lot of confusion around this part of the presentation they did, a lot of people were looking at these and thinking, oh, they're going to go redevelop all of these centers exactly as what was shown in these workshops. And that's not the case. Kind of everything that they were presented just kind of hypothetical. This is what might get built there, kind of to illustrate if they make these changes, these are some of the things that will be allowed. But they did have a lot of kind of like really interesting proposals, and they kind of looked at a range of village centers in the south and the north of what might be possible under redevelopment. All right, so Livable Sunnyvale. So the board actually sent a letter to Sean Mendrin, who's the planning officer that's actually running this program in the city of Sunnyvale, and letter supporting kind of the proposals that they were outlining in the workshops. There are things that we've been advocating for a long time, and things that we think are very important as far as allowing more housing, maintaining the retail. And we sent a letter in support of that. We kind of felt it was important to do that because there's been some amount of response to this that where people are not as interested in seeing the housing developed and seeing some of the things that were presented in the workshop. So we thought it was important to send a letter saying, yeah, we definitely agree with what was presented there. And then we're also working on kind of next steps for what to do with this. So we actually have a committee. Agnes and I are the chairs of that committee. If you're interested in this topic and want to get more involved, please email us and we can kind of make sure you get all the emails and everything that we're doing. We're actually having our next meeting on Monday at 6:30. It's going to be a Zoom meeting. So if you're interested in participating in that, yeah, definitely send us some emails, and we'll also just send it out to the general list as well, so people have the Zoom links. Some of the things that we're thinking about doing is kind of setting up some meetings with individual council members just to discuss kind of what we liked about the proposals, kind of some additional things that we might want to ask for. And we're also encouraging kind of individuals to send letters into Sean. So please go back, look at the presentations, watch the videos, find out more information about this. And if you agree with kind of what the direction the city is going, please send Sean your feedback. If you think there's other things that they missed or kind of changes you'd like to see, send those as well. He's been very responsive to kind of most of the discussions that we've been having with him. So actually, and Richard has a comment. Or actually, hold on. Yeah, we have to use the mic so everyone.
And I would just say, if you're sending those comments to Sean, I think it would be very helpful if you CC'd them to City Council as well.
And the Planning Commission too, yes. All right, and actually, I think that was the end. So yeah, can open up the questions, or other people have comments. All right, well, that was easy. All right, thank you.
So I would just say, to echo Chuck, there are, we as a group feel strongly that we need more housing in Sunnyvale, but there is some residents that don't feel the same way. So we need to use our voice. So, and thank you, Chuck and Agnes, for having that meeting at an evening time. Maybe that can help some of us reach other members of our community that feel strongly about housing. So thank you. I don't see any more questions. So our next speaker is Garth Williams. So Garth and I have been biking kids and walking kids to school since our West Valley days. And part of Stevens Creek Trail was where I first started doing a little bit of advocacy, because at the time, probably 15, 16, 17 years ago, the hardest part of the Stevens Creek Trail was getting to it through Sunnyvale. So just the thought of it extending down to Fremont is just so exciting. So Garth has been biking and running on the Stevens Creek Trail since 1997, and also the Friends of the Stevens Creek Trail host a Trailblazers race. And Garth has also been running that since 1997. He is currently the chair of Friends of the Stevens Creek Trail. No, you're not the chair.
Treasurer.
Treasurer. And the chair is Jim?
Now
No.
I'm a board
Great
member, but
beginnings.
Who's the chair now that I feel
Great
like a
beginnings.
Greg?
Yes,
Okay.
who's
Okay.
also on this call.
Oh, Greg. Okay. Thank you. He's the chair. Thank you. So Garth is just going to give us a little bit of brief history of the Stevens Creek Trail and what's coming down the pike that we may or may not want to advocate for. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Angela, and everyone at Living Sunnyvale for letting us have a few minutes. I know you got a packed agenda, so I'll try and make this quick. And let me see if I can share my screen. Here, whoops. What happened there? Okay. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the trail, I just wanted to give a little context for how the trail fits in here. And I think it's a rather unique opportunity within Sunnyvale to have a truly regional trail that will now run through part of Sunnyvale. And the vision that we have for the trail is to go really from the bay, where it's out at Shoreline in Mountain View. And this purple line is the Bay Trail, which is a big regional trail that encircles the bay all around. And then there's another purple line up here, which is the Ridge Trail. And the Stevens Creek Trail, the concept is to have that be a connection between those two large regional trails and have a continuous route from the bay to the mountains up in Santa Cruz with a trail. The green areas on here are the completed portions of the Stevens Creek Trail already. And then this red portion is now what's being discussed, and finally the design portion that's going to be done in Sunnyvale. And of course, our vision is to get all of this completed all the way through. This was just kind of to give you a little background through Sunnyvale, what was happened. So in the early 90s, Mountain View started developing the trail up from Shoreline through their downtown. And actually at that time, when the trail was coming closer to Sunnyvale, they approached Sunnyvale to get support for the trail. And in 1994, actually, Sunnyvale did a feasibility study and put a policy in place that said, we do not want the trail built along the creek corridor in Sunnyvale. So that was a ban that was put in place. As Angela said, I joined the board of the Friends of Stevens Creek Trail while I was a member or was living in Sunnyvale in 2007. I wasn't aware of this ban at the time, but I soon found out that our first objective was to figure out how to get rid of that ban so we could actually start building the trail in Sunnyvale. And we were able to get that done in 2009. The city council then went through, and there had been talks between all the four cities, Mountain View, Sunnyvale, Cupertino, and Los Altos, about how to connect the trail through the cities. And Sunnyvale had told the other cities, well, we can't do anything in the creek corridor because it's, we can't even talk about that. It's against our policy. So that was kind of the impetus to get this going. And in 2009, the policy was removed. And not only that, about 3 years later, they started a joint cities coordinated feasibility study in 2012. And Sunnyvale was actually the lead agency on that feasibility study. So it was quite a turnaround from what had happened back in the early 90s, and quite encouraging. And so that 2012 study was completed in 2015, and council then took this map over here is from that feasibility study, and it broke down the segments into 3 segments, segment 1, segment 2, and segment 3. So Sunnyvale in 2016 approved the Creek Corridor segment down through segment 1 down to Fremont Avenue. And they also said for segment 2, we aren't committing to do anything, but once we get segment 1 going along, we'll do a comprehensive study if we can squeeze a trail in between Bernardo Avenue and the Highway 85, sound wall there. So that's the status of it now. And just last year, the city of Sunnyvale awarded the contract to start that design on segment 2. So this is really exciting that finally now we're getting the design done, and that work has started. Just to give you an idea, the expected start of construction for this will be 2025. So we got another few years before they'll even start any construction. So now, as far as that contract and design, the city has now come up with their initial design. And this is what they came up with for that segment. This goes from Remington Avenue down to Fremont. So the part, if you know where the trail ends now, it's up at Dale Heatherstone in Mountain View. And Mountain View will actually be completing the trail from there down to Remington, or they'll be the lead agency. Sunnyvale and Mountain View are working very closely together on this. But this is the plan that Sunnyvale has initially come up with, and this is going to council on March 21st for their approval of how to do the design, to get the design going. And if you see here, what the current plan has in place is 2 endpoints on either side of Highway 85. One is segment 2 that would be here on the west side of 85, and the other one they're calling segment 3. So these are not to be confused with the other segment 1, 2, and 3 of the feasibility study. These are segment 1, 2, and 3 just within the city of Sunnyvale. And so that's what is going to council. But we took a look at this, and this proposed segment 3 is a real safety concern. And it just doesn't seem to make too much sense to have, if you're going to have an east and a west exit from the trail, to have the west exit that comes out on the east side of the highway to stop where you would only be able to go westbound on the bicycle lanes at Fremont Avenue. It really makes a lot more sense to move this over to the eastbound side of Fremont, or to the east side, where eastbound bicycle lane is on the south side of Fremont Avenue. And also there's a dedicated right turn lane in between the bicycle lane and the sidewalk on this north end. So this is a very dangerous area. I don't believe there's really going to be a safe way to get bicycles to be going east anywhere if you end here. So you can see on the north or south side of Fremont Avenue, there's a very open landing area where you could bring over a crossing and then get people safely over to these eastbound lanes where they could continue on their route. So that's one alternative. The other side, on the west side, what the city is proposing is, again, following the freeway ramp. So this is the off-ramp to the freeway, and it goes right along this building that is here. It's a Stanford Medical Center. The trail itself is this big line of, or the creek itself is this big line of trees here. And this alternate route is a possibility only if Stanford Medical agreed to work with the city. So the city has right of way through this to go down here. This route would require cooperation with the landowner, which is Stanford. So I think that's why this was not proposed in the original plan there. So like I said, this is going to council on March 21st. I think it's critically important that we get the city to move to make this segment 3 end on the south side of Fremont Avenue, so we can get people going east on that those bikes and get everybody through this very dangerous and congested area without having to deal with the traffic. If you go for the trail here from Fremont Avenue all the way out to Shoreline Park through Mountain View, there is no at-grade crossings along the entire trail. So it's all off-street and you don't have to worry about it. If we then bring them into Sunnyvale and drop them off in one of the most dangerous places you could think of, I think that's not going to be a very good service to the trail and will very likely limit the number of people who would be willing to risk going through such a high stress area. So I think there's a lot of value in getting this over here. In addition, on the west side, this area would be a much nicer area. It also would get you, if you're going west on Fremont Avenue, it'll get you away from the entrance to the Stanford Clinic, so that bikers have less of a concern there, as well as get you to the signal lights crossing Fremont Avenue at Belleville, where there's no crossing if you end here. So we're hoping that Livable Sunnyvale would consider sending a letter supporting these alternatives be put within the design of the current plan, and they don't stop just on the north side of Fremont Avenue. That was really all I had. I just wanted to mention, I think doing that crossing now to the south side of Fremont is critical, because there's no guarantee that that segment on Bernardo will even ever be built. So it makes a lot of sense to me anyway, that we build the overcrossing of Fremont and at least have that as the final ending. It could be years before we see anything, even if they do decide to build on Bernardo. The feasibility study has to be done, and we're talking 5, 10, 15 years before that could be done. And that was all I had. I don't know if there are any questions or.
There is a Livable Sunnyvale question. Someone, do you want to just speak?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, good, Julie. I couldn't tell.
I was wondering if it ends in, it goes over to the south side of Fremont. So let's say I'm riding eastbound. No, sorry. I'm riding from Mary and Fremont westbound, and I want to get on the trail. How do I get on the trail?
If you're riding westbound?
I'm riding from Mary and Fremont, riding westbound. So I'm going towards this dangerous intersection, right? Because I got to be on that side, the north side of the street. So I'm riding. Yep, I got there. Now, how do I get on the trail if the landing was over on the other side?
So you continue along Fremont over to this west side entrance.
Okay. And so there's an entrance on the north side of the street?
the west side here, yeah, it's both proposed entrances are on the north side, where this segment 2 goes up, right here.
Right. But you were saying that it needs to land on the south side of the street.
Only on the east segment here, not this segment 2, only
There are
segment 3.
So you're proposing 2 segments, having both. So
Yes,
people
that's what is proposed by the city right now. That was actually part of the 2016 recommendation of council to the city, was to bring it down on both sides of Highway 85. But they didn't discuss north and south side of Fremont Avenue back then.
Oh, okay. So I guess, okay. So what you're saying is that one of them would land on the southeast side of Highway 85, and one of them would land on the northwest. Yeah.
Yes.
So 2 of them, 2 landings. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And like I said, that's what the city is proposing now, is to do those 2 landings. They just had both of them on the north side.
Okay.
And so, yeah, the idea is the meeting, city council needs to direct the city staff to consider going to the south side on that, eastern end, is what I would like to see happen.
This is Colleen Hausler. I'm familiar with that neighborhood, but I'm having a hard time visualizing how the trail will be implemented into that intersection, which is a problematic intersection now during rush hour. Are you talking about an elevated trail there to get you across Fremont? I'm having a hard time visualizing it. Oh, okay. So it's like a big.
So this would be an
expensive bridge
overcrossing, just as Highway 85 goes over Fremont Avenue.
thing? Okay. All right.
The route along the entrance to the highway on the east side there is already somewhat elevated. It comes down in grade from the highway level to Fremont Avenue. So the bridge could be, launched basically at the height of the highway and continue until it gets to the south side of Fremont Avenue, is our suggestion.
Good. For those of us that might want to speak so soon in March, it would be helpful to have some talking points prepared for us. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If you could send an email to one of us, I don't know, Garth, if you want to give your email, or I'll give mine. We'll be glad to turn around the request and send you our talking points, basically the summary of what Garth has just said.
Yeah, this is Mike Trapp. Hey, going back to that intersection there. So what happens, we got rid of the Matilda Monster, and now the, I don't know what, the Fremont Frankenstein is basically replacing it. So they're going to have to completely redo this intersection, especially if we start adding all these villages. How's that going to affect if you already built an overpass? So building more in an intersection that's already road rage is not really helping the matter. It's adding more bicycles to a section where even the cars can't even get along. And I really think someone needs to go back and talk to Stanford and come down the creek area there, which is prettier with trees. Go with Stanford that it's biking, it's healthy. It fits in with their model of health and fitness. And you'll come out on a nice, calm intersection past all the road ragers. It'll be a lot easier to get across Fremont at that point to do anything.
Yeah.
But adding anything to that intersection is just, it's a nightmare waiting to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we definitely agree. I mean, of course, I think if you do have an overcrossing here, at least you avoid those extra bicycles having to go through the traffic lanes there.
But if they build more crossings and overcrossings, that means that's more complication trying to redo that intersection, which is not helpful, having Mountain View, Caltrains, and Sunnyvale all trying to fit that. We can't even get the lights synchronized half the time. So trying to get that coordinated.
Well, that's the beauty of the overcrossing, is you don't have to worry about the lights. But yes, it is, and absolutely, we're asking Sunnyvale, or what we'd like to propose is Sunnyvale talk to Stanford now. Obviously, Sunnyvale can't do it on its own, so Stanford has to be agreeable. But before, plowing ahead with this freeway off-ramp version, we'd like to see Sunnyvale explore all possibilities with Stanford to move it out of that area.
So this is Mike. I have a question. Well, first of all, I believe, and there's some council members here, correct me, that what is actually coming before the council is just approving changes to the trail that are driven by erosion in the creek. Not that this isn't necessarily a good time to bring these other subjects up. Just as a comment, and when I saw the presentation at BPAC and looked at this, I thought, wow, just come down the creek here. This it looks beautiful. But I went over there, and there's you got the fence there in the parking lot. There's like 2 inches off the parking lot, and it's a straight cliff drop off. So they would definitely have to take some of that parking lot to get a trail down there. Although it's a big parking lot, it seems like there's room to do that. But
Yes.
it's too bad. The creek is so wide there on both sides. It looks like there's no space at all.
Right. Yeah. So I think the critical issue, like I said, is this may be the only part of the trail that's ever built in Sunnyvale. So if you don't do that overcrossing of Fremont now, if that's not incorporated into this design, it may never happen. That other segment to go down Bernardo is not committed by the city at this point. It's only a traffic study to decide whether or not it's feasible to do that, or they want to do that. So I think that point in particular has to be in the design that the city does now. And the only way to get that into the design is if council tells staff that they should add that, because staff's current plan is to stop on the north side of Fremont Avenue. So that's the critical point that I think we need to make sure gets across.
All right, so this is Chuck. I had one question and then one comment. For the segments 2 and 3, are those both bi-directional, or does one go one way and one go the other way?
They're both bi-directional. It's a multi-use trail.
Okay, so they're both like complete trails. And then kind of the comment I had is, for me, I would actually be coming up Bernardo from the south. So actually, if instead of dumping off onto Fremont, if it looked like that was just a big green space, if they could actually just go a little bit south and dump off onto Bernardo, that would make getting onto and off of the trail substantially easier. That whole intersection there is just a complete nightmare, and I'll ride my bike just about anywhere, but I take active measures to avoid that intersection just because it is so bad. So yeah, basically, if it would kind of go down through that green space to where that tree is and just dump off on Bernardo, would be much easier to get on and off.
Yeah,
than
and
having it curve around and dump on Fremont.
Absolutely. And so I think as far as the details of where exactly it goes and where the outlet is a little maybe premature for that, but I think you're right. And then the trail, like I said, the trail may continue down Bernardo. So in that sense, it would, if that segment 2 of the old 2016 feasibility study was done, then you should be able, then it should be continuous all the way down to Homestead.
I'm looking. I don't know if there are any other comments or questions. I don't see any. I think
I
what
didn't
I,
see
One
any
more
in
here,
chat.
hold on.
All the way in the back. It's Michael Trapp again. What about a completely different deal and say, instead of ending at Fremont, which is that intersection, it just, no, biking is supposed to be calm and refreshing. That just adds stress. And if there's a bike there, I guarantee there'll be a fatality before too long. What if instead you ended up on Bernardo on the other side of Fremont, no overpass, just ended near the the care home over there? Maybe Sunnyvale needs to buy a house, one of the properties, and just end it there. And you end up on the nice, calm, or at least semi-calm Bernardo residential street. And then they can come down at least through the Bernardo intersection or the next one over, where they wouldn't be hitting you wouldn't be going on Fremont at all. You end up in a residential area, go bike through the residential area to the other side of Fremont.
Yeah.
That, avoiding the overpass and basically buying one piece of property is probably going to be a lot cheaper than building an overpass.
Yeah, well, I think they did look at, connecting over here around Townsend Terrace, but this is actually a private street. It's not Sunnyvale Street. So getting from the trail over to Bernardo can get pretty complex here as well. But I mean, obviously those things are alternatives that I would hope they look at through the design if that
Maybe they
was
could
an
run it
option.
down past the Salvation Army there. Again, there's another community group that's supposed to be good for community and welfare. I'm sure there's probably someplace there.
I can't hear the speaker there. I don't.
Running down next to where the Salvation Army is, that would be closer and out of the private area, possibly. Who knows? There's got to be something there.
There will be a connection at Remington, obviously. So there'll be an exit at Remington if you don't want to go down to Fremont. There is an opening to the trail and a planned, entrance there.
That sounds like a lot better than Fremont. Just end it there.
Well, we're hoping it goes all the way to Homestead, so that's the goal.
So thank you, Garth. So in the chat is Jim's email. So if you guys want to come to council on the 21st, I think I hear what Garth is saying, that we want to advocate. I personally will probably advocate to get an overpass, just because if there's no other place on on the trail that dumps you out on the road, why would Sunnyvale want to be that person or that city? And if we plan it and look at it now, then we're much more probably going to be more successful. So that'll be probably my comments. I'm still noodling in my head, but I love the trail. So thank you for spending your evening with us to talk about the trail. And thanks for your email and your time and support of Friends of Stevens Creek Trail.
Well, thank you for having us and spending the time.
Yeah. I see somebody beside Mike. I'm not so sure she wants. Oh, she's looking for the email. It's Colleen. I believe we are at the end. I don't have anything else. Does anybody in person or online have anything else? Going once. Mike, is anybody there? Saying
I don't think so.
beautiful. Okay, well, thank you all for your attention, your dedication to Sunnyvale, and thanks for coming to our first hybrid meeting. I think we survived, so thank you very much.
Somebody asked a question of where they can find the recorded version of the meeting. So if you could briefly say that.
We usually post it on our YouTube channel.